Hello, everybody. And I always start out every interview saying I'm excited, but I'm just always excited when someone with great music taste or just who loves music as much as I do comes to the channel to talk about all things music. And today I have Tam, Stacy, and Casey, who make up one of today's leading girl groups, the Shindellas. Welcome to the platform, you guys. I'm so happy you're here.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. So just to start off, you guys are a girl group, and every girl group has a story of how it was formed. So how did you guys all decide to come together and sing?
Oh
We
my.
were brought together by a songwriting and production duo. Their name is Lewis York, also known as Chuck Harmony and Claude Kelly extraordinaire. Claude Kelly is a amazing songwriter and vocal producer. He's worked with everybody. Some of my favorites are Miley Cyrus or Christina Aguilera, Jessie J, um, Whitney Houston, hello, Bruno Mars, just everybody amazing. They still continue to work with everybody in the business, but they're actually known for being, for working with women in particular, or men who are extremely talented vocalists. They've worked with these women, they've written songs for them, they've made Grammy nominated music, and they were still feeling a little unfulfilled or boxed in with the type of music they could create. They kept getting the same request, make that again, make that again. And they wanted to break free of that boundary. And before quitting music completely, they gave it one more shot and just made music for themselves as a band. And they fell in love with music all over again. In that space, came up with the idea with, hey, we need to have some women too who can portray this sound in a way that is just as elegant and out of the box as it sounds. There's an excellence to it. There's a standard of sound, the instrumentation and musicianship. And so they started this search. I was actually the first one that they asked to be a part of it in Los Angeles. That was in 2014, 15. And they had started to create these sounds with music that had concepts of like self-love and self-respect and sisterhood and empowerment for Black women. And I thought that was amazing. I'd always wanted to be and was drawn to music that my grandmother could listen to and my baby sister could listen to at the same time. So it was important to me to have that in my music and to reflect somebody with like poise, you know, and but also just amazing sounds. And the music was so great. We started a search for about almost 2 years, looking for my beautiful bandmates, Casey and Tam. We had so many no's, so many talent. I met so many talented women, and every time I explained what we were trying to do, it seemed like the vision became clearer and clearer, and I could see like it coming to life. I would put up on our vision board, like pictures of the ladies and what we would wear, where we would perform, and I just started to imagine it. Chuck found Casey, and I'll let her explain that, how she was introduced to Chuck.
I met Chuck at a networking event in LA, and he was the keynote special guest who was the super producer who we all were like, he's going to hear our music and he's going to be like, that's her. She's the star we've been waiting for. And so he was reviewing songwriting. I was there as a songwriter. He was reviewing our songs and just giving us feedback. And I played some music. He graciously gave some feedback. And after that, he didn't immediately say like, oh my gosh, like what, how? He did follow me online though. He followed me on all the apps, and primarily it was Twitter, I feel like at the time. And we just stayed in touch loosely over the years. And I was on tour in Japan, actually, when he reached out to me the first time about the Shindellas and was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing over there? How are you doing this? And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And he was like, well, I have an idea I'd like to talk to you about. And we hopped on a call. And I remember he said, what are you doing with music right now? And I described it. I was like, I feel like I'm really finding myself. And I feel like I'm just performing these songs and figuring out how I want them to sound and feel and who I want to be as an artist. Like, and he was like, would you want to do that in a girl band? And I was like, wait, I never thought about that before. But here's Chuck Harmony, who I admire so much. And he starts describing it. And I was like, there was so much alignment. And even with what he and Claude had been going through and what I had been personally going through, there was so much alignment of just like wanting to get free. So they flew me out to Nashville. I met the beautiful Stasella, Stacy, and we just were all like, hey, you know, let's go look at some vintage clothes. And then we both realized how obsessed with the moon we are. And it was a super moon that night. So we drove around the city until we could find the moon. And I just love that the whole night we were both in our heads, like, this coat's cute, but there's a super moon. Is it going to be weird if I just bring that up? And then the next day we sang together. She pulled out her guitar. We sang Happy to See You. She was like, hey, sing this with me. And I was like, and I had that moment of like a God moment, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the thing I've been looking for. I don't know what, how, or why, but this is the thing. And I had to go finish a contract I was doing for a musical in Vegas. And then I got my butt to Nashville.
Every time you guys tell the story, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I guess my story speaks to the power of social media. I was living in Dallas at the time, basically working on some solo music with one of my good friends there. And all the while I had been posting clips of myself singing different songs, my little spin on it, my little remix, whatever you want to call it. A good few of them had gone viral. And so Claude Kelly happened to cross one, and he reached out to me and said that he and his business partner, Chuck Harmony, were working on something special and they'd love for me to be a part. And so we had a conference call and they kind of told me about the vision. And then I flew out to Nashville. I want to say it was November of 2016, got a chance to meet the team, met Stella, heard the music and the demos and just all of the incredible ideas they had. And I fell in love with it. I was just like, this feels like home. This feels like where I'm supposed to be. I had that God moment, like you said, Case. And so I basically packed my vehicle up January of 2017, and I made that 10-hour drive to Nashville, and I never looked back.
There are different eras of girl groups. And when I hear and see you guys, whether it's from the movements or the
Yes,
dress or just the structures of the harmonies, you guys harken back to or reference a lot that heyday of the girl group. I would say like the late 60s, early 70s, that part. Why that particular era of girl groups when there were many to choose from?
I think I think we remind people of every era, depending on what song and how we present. There's something about just being elegant and wearing glamorous clothes and sparkles that just remind people, even before they hear the music, of that era. Then, like, we started off, our sound definitely had these tight harmonies. It had that Motown bop to it, and musicality. So it just reminded people of that era. Even like, we weren't trying to do it on purpose. If you really listen to where we're going and our music as a whole, it's actually more futuristic than nostalgic. And so though we have this like vibe, it reminds you of it. And we definitely pull from all of the amazing artists and girl groups from the past. It's not just that era. I think there's In Vogue, there's Pointer Sisters, there's Andrews Sisters, there's the Clark Sisters. Those are like top girl groups. There's also Destiny's Child vibe, or TLC we get a lot. So there is every era almost in our influences and how it comes off, especially depending on the song we perform.
Mm-hmm. We say it's everything you've ever heard and everything you've never heard.
Yeah.
So we've coined it New American Soul. because it literally has all the elements of the past, and we're literally a melting pot of all of our influences. So, I mean, you hear gospel, you hear rock and roll, you hear jazz, you hear R&B and soul. I mean, you hear it all in our music, especially with this new project album that we are set to release soon. You're going to hear a lot of different things, and it's going to feed your soul.
Cause I was just listening to you guys' latest release last night. Last night felt good for my soul. And I was like, okay, I hear the progression that you are mentioning. But also like, as you mentioned, sort of the nostalgia of the other work. How do you guys what am I trying to ask? Because nostalgia is very big, just the music period right now. How do you guys do what you do or combine all those things while keeping it one individual to you guys' musical identities, but also keeping it modern, if that makes sense?
Well, I think we're really, really the sum of our influences. Like we are 3 different women with 3 very different backgrounds. We grew up in different parts of the country. Tam grew up in the country in Wharton, Texas. She says it was just the church, Stace grew up in Chicago, in the city with 2 Jamaican parents, like in a very Jamaican community. I grew up in a mixed family in the suburbs outside of Seattle. So I had all of that Seattle grunge influence, and then just our backgrounds are all very different. So what we grew up being fed musically, obviously there's the big ones, Whitney, Aretha, Tina, we all had, but then there's like major differences in what we listen to. So when we're in the studio, especially now that we're more hands-on with the creation of the music, working with Claude and Chuck, who also have 2 totally different backgrounds and experiences, there's so much room to play. There's so much room and another beautiful thing about the 3 of us that I don't think we realized when we came together, but we've learned, is that thank you, God, for these big vocal ranges in different colors in different places on everyone's different voices. So we get to play with everyone's different influences. We get to play with our voices. We get to try new things. And I think as long as we continue to be true to ourselves, it will keep pushing forward, and that new sound and feeling will just keep building and getting better and stronger and faster and brighter.
In the studio, I'm really always interested in how like groups arrange their harmony. So for example, on something like Reconsider, how do you say, okay, we're going to do unison here, harmony here, and you're going to step out here? What is that process like?
Wow, Reconsider was one of the first songs that we created, and that one was with the vibe of like it was a gospel vibe, of course, but there's almost this like speakeasy jazz club lead to that. I don't care who you love, and to keep it like bouncy and keep that energy to it, there were these added vocals to kind of make it punch every time the phrase ended. I remember Claude and Chuck, Claude did a demo recording of it first. And when he was creating it, he was definitely inspired by, it's a gospel artist, sheesh. But it was a gospel inspiration with like the harmonies that kind of gave it a speakeasy punch. I just remember that song being created, and it was a beautiful, beautiful, one of the first songs we recorded with the idea of the Shindellas. And then when we got our vocals on it, it expanded more. And I think that's a big thing about our music too, is that when they brought us together, they had an idea, but then when they heard us together and what we could do, and like Kay said, the range of everything, it almost expanded all of the music out past their first vision, and it just blew it up even more. And that is in all of the songs, especially Reconsider, and like the first few songs we did.
Oh yeah, and Reconsider is also one of the ones that we performed live before we actually recorded it. So a lot of, like you said, our own personal kind of flair and pizzazz was put on it, versus what was on the demo. So yeah, it grew a lot. It was beautiful.
There's some songs where you guys sing in harmony majority of the time, some where there's the traditional lead and backing, or it varies. So how, when you guys are in the studio and you're presented with a song, how do you say, you know what, we should all do this in harmony? Or, you know what, this would sound better if, say, Stacy takes the lead and we support, or, like that kind of process, or
Yeah. I think it's a mix. Some of the songs, like Reconsider, for example, was a song that was already written and arranged. So we knew where the harmonies were in the structure. We just knew right away Tam was singing lead. It was all Claude and Chuck already had arranged and composed that song. And then when we went in, there were definitely some little ad libs and stuff we added in. I remember especially Chills and Happy to See You, I think were the first times we started being we came up with this part, this little 3-part, on the Chills where we go, what's the part where we go,
yes.
Yeah, there's a couple little things in there where I remember it was a big deal at the time to be excuse me, we have an idea. We're in there in the booth trying it, whispering, guys. But now that everyone knows each other more and we know each other's voices more, it usually is just the vibe of the song that's going to inform who's singing lead, that's going to inform who's singing which vocal part. And sometimes there's songs where we've gone in, like a song on our record, something that I want to say, if I can say, we went in and we started doing it as a unison. But I think we all felt this doesn't feel like a unison. At least I remember feeling that in the studio. And then I was not surprised a couple of days later when Claude was like, let's just try Tam on the lead. And then it was just oh, thank you. When you hear the song. But I think there's songs that have certain energies. Last Night definitely is my energy. And it is. Think of Me when you hear it. So we've got to get you got to hear this record, the new one. There's definitely songs that were written specifically hey, writing this is for this step vibe, which we think Stay should definitely have a moment on. Writing this is definitely this high energy, bright, poppy vibe, which we think Kay should definitely have a moment on. Writing this is definitely silky soul, bounce gentle. We would definitely feel like Tam should have a moment. So sometimes it happens in the room, in the studio, but usually it's happened before. Does that answer your question?
that actually did answer my question.
Okay.
And what I really liked about you, you all's answers, even throughout this whole thing, is when I think about some of the greatest girl groups of the past, something that I hear in you guys that I don't traditionally hear, when I listen to some of their interviews, is just how much of a collaboration you guys, how much you all collaborate to make everything together. So what is that? Why is that so important for you guys to have each other's input on what's going on?
We all chose to be together. I think that's so important, that we were all artists and singers, songwriters before we came together. And coming together wasn't to stifle any of that artistry, but to make it actually more amplified by coming together. More people can be reached by seeing me and seeing Tam and seeing Casey singularly, and then multiply it by 3 because we're together. But it's not to stifle our artistry. We all have something really beautiful to share. And I mean, so much talent is in the room. Sometimes there's too many ideas. You gotta reel it in. But that's the fun part. And I think it's what we honor about each other is that we're growing. Every time Casey gets better, I'm inspired to get better. Every time Tam, sings beautifully and bigger and out of her box. I'm like, I gotta go harder. And that's how we kind of feed each other's souls and our artistry.
Yeah.
And so, and just speaking of the girl, just continuing on that tradition of girl groups, you know, you guys are a girl group. And so, you know, for a while there, to some extent, you know, there were a lot of them. And then, you know, it slowly started to taper off. And then, you know, we see somewhat of a reemergence of them. But, you know, just overall, why do you think girl groups are important to the fabric of music?
Personally, I feel like girl groups are important, specifically in the Black community, because I think they need to know that Black women we're not just a monolith. There is so many layers to us, and we look different. We have different vocal stylings. There's just so many things about us that are different, but that's what makes us beautiful. And when we come together, it's just something so powerful about that, especially people being able to see Black women in a different light, and celebrating each other, like you said, Stace, and being confident in ourselves individually and who we are as a collective. I think that's important. And also, I just think that where it concerns the musicality, oh man, I feel like it's kind of a lost art now to hear women singing like in harmony and collectively and harmoniously. It's like, where is that, you know? So, I mean, I think it's just so important, and it's so beautiful to, you know, hear that and to feel it and to see it and to, you know, just immerse yourself in it.
You hear like harmony in music, like Ariana Grande, Beyonce, they do the most beautiful and incredible vocal arrangements that are so inspiring, and I love them. But there's something about seeing three different people with three different voices create that sound together that is literally what music is. It's three people. We don't even need instruments. Like the voices are the instruments, and the sounds you can make are, it's music. And it's important for people to also see that and not just hear it and hear harmonies and be like, oh, it's a cool part of the composition, but to see like, if somebody drops out, it changes. Do you know what I mean? And so I think I think it's important.
And speaking of the harmony, you guys don't relegate yourselves to a singular part, do you? Really? You guys are just so different. So you guys, so just a quick question again, how do you decide who's going to sing which part on a particular tune?
It started off with Case on top, Tam on the melody, and me on the bottom, just to get our blend, to learn new songs, to learn each other. Then if somebody's not feeling well, can't really hit those highs, we switch it up. And we're like, oh, that's a new sound. That sounds great. Let's try this for this song. And then if, you know, this song has, we have one that's got like a Bee Gees vibe. We're like, how can we attack this song with all of our different, like I have like a smoky, airy vibe. How do we get this sound? How do we make this sound more airy? Then we'll switch it around that way. Like Kay said, we all have like really big ranges. I mean, I try not to be up in the raptures myself. I like, you know, the mid to lower myself, but I'm in this new record we're putting out. I'm all the way up there, and it's so much fun. And we can switch it up live too, and it just gives us another tool in our belt to really play on stage and in our music.
You know, I never actually thought about that. As much as I listen to groups singing, I never thought if they switch up, like who sings what part, it gives you a different sonic experience to convey a different musical idea. Wow.
Yes.
I just learned something new. Thank you.
Yeah.
And so, you know, just to wind things down, you guys, so we've heard the latest single. Last night was good for my soul. And
Yeah.
that's just a snippet of where you guys are heading. But you've mentioned the record before, this record, the upcoming record that I haven't heard yet. But how is that new single a reflection of where you guys are heading?
Yeah. It's a party.
Party.
We want people to dance. We've been through so much for the last, I don't want to say, well, really the last decade, but I would say the last few years we've been through a lot. And so we really wanted to exude joy on this album. We wanted to celebrate life, celebrate women and each other, celebrate just community. And you're going to hear that in this record. You're going to hear the celebration. You're going to hear the love. You're going to hear the joy, and the excitement about the future and what's next.
And it's a little sexy.
And so
And a lot of sexy.
Falling in love. I mean, we were falling in love when this album was being written and created. We were all having all our different love stories were happening. We were
engaged and getting married.
Like a lot, it's a reflection of our personal stories, but it's also a reflection of the times where we'd like the world to go. Okay,
so if you had to, are you guys pulling from some new influences? Because this single, it's not. I hear the difference between that and the debut album, the first record. So you guys pulling from some new influences?
They've always been in us.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
I mean, I feel like we've taken from Genesis up until this new album, I feel like we've taken people on a musical journey. And so now I feel like we're in this space where we are just exploring and shooting for the stars and trying different things, and still with our influences, still pulling from what we know to be true to us individually as well as collectively. But I mean, it's different. It's so different.
Different, some new sounds. Chuck will not create the same sound. He produces the music, and it will shock us. We usually start the recording by the piano, and we sing it, into the room, and we're like, oh, this is great. And we have a voice note of it with the piano, and then we'll record our vocals, just to the piano, or we'll come back and Chuck has created this new world. And we get to play in his new world, and he uses new sounds. He never uses the same sounds. So everything does change also, because his production is just like wild and free. So that's going to be in there for sure.
Okay, so last question. Outside of this new record, what are you guys up to today? Or is there anything you can tell us about that's coming up?
The Shindellas are going on a promo tour.
Touring. Yes. We're also shooting more visuals.
Yes.
We're going to shoot visuals that go with our new music. We're trying to get the people in the mood,
Yeah.
So working on that too.
Of course, the album drops in October. So we have been gearing up for that. And I mean, we got some mock-ups back for like what it's going to look like. And we're just like over the moon. So it's going to be amazing the next few months.
Thank you guys for coming, and I learned so much, and I can't wait to hear this new record, but also to share this with the viewers. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Same.